Was a ruse to get our officers away from their command. At break of day, the pickets were drove in by rebel cavalry, and orders were immediately received from commanding officer to get wagon train out on the road in 10 minutes. The quartermaster had been to the dance and had not returned. Consequently, it devolved upon me to see to wagon train, which I did, and in probably 10 minutes the whole 76-mule army wagons were in line out on the main road, while the companies were forming into line and getting ready for a fight. Rebels had us completely surrounded and soon began to fire volley after volley into our disorganized ranks. Not one officer in 5 was present. General commanding and staff, as soon as they realized our danger, started for the river, swam across, and got away. We had a small company of artillery with us, commanded by a lieutenant. The lieutenant, in the absence of other officers, assumed command of the 2 regiments, and right gallantly did he do service. Kept forming his men for the better protection of his wagon train, while the rebels were shifting around from one point to another, and all the time sending volley after volley into our ranks. Our men did well, and had there been plenty of officers and ammunition, we might have gained the day. After 10 hours fighting, we were obliged to surrender after having lost and killed over 100, and 3 or 4 times that number in wounded. After surrendering, we were drawn up into line, counted off, and hurriedly marched away south. By 8 o'clock at night, had probably marched 10 miles, and encamped until morning. We expected that our troops would intercept and release us, but they did not. An hour before daylight we were up and on the march toward Bristol, Virginia, that being the nearest railroad station. We were cavalrymen, and marching on foot made us very lame, and we could hardly hobble along. Were very well fed on cornbread and bacon. Reached Bristol, Virginia, November 8th, and was soon aboard of cattle cars en route for the rebel capital. I must here tell how I came into possession of a very nice and large bedspread, which is doing good service even now these cold nights. After we were captured, everything was taken away from us. Blankets, overcoats, and in many cases our boots and shoes. I had on a new pair of boots, which by muddying them over had escaped the rebel eyes thus far as being a good pair. As our blankets had been taken away from us, we suffered considerably from cold. I saw that if I was going to remain a prisoner of war, it behooved me to get hold of a blanket. After a few hours' march, I became so lame walking with my new boots on that the rebels were compelled to put me on an old horse that was being led along by one of the guard. This guard had the bedspread before spoken of. Told him I was going into prison at the beginning of a long winter and should need a blanket, and couldn't he give me his? We had considerable talk and were very good friends. Said he rather liked me, but wouldn't part with his bedspread. Didn't love me that much. Treated me, however, with applejack out of his canteen. I kept getting my wits together to arrange some plan to get the article in question. Finally told him I had a large sum of money on my person, which I expected would be taken away from me anyway, and as he was a good fellow, would rather he have it than anyone else. He was delighted and all attention. Wanted me to be careful not to let any of the other rebels see the transfer. I had a lot of Michigan broken-down wildcat money. I pulled it out of an inside pocket and handed him the roll. It was green paper, and of course he supposed it greenbacks. Was very glad of the gift and wanted to know what he could do for me. My first proposition to him was to let me escape, but he couldn't do that.